You have been living inside a story, not the story of your dreams, the story of your limitations. The story that says, this is who I am, this is what I am capable of, this is what is available to me, this is how much I'm allowed to have, this is the ceiling. This is where I realistically end. And here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. That story is not the truth. It never was. It was just a collection of conclusions drawn from experiences. Identities handed to you by people who were themselves living inside their own inherited stories. Definitions written by your nervous system during moments of pain, disappointment, or fear, designed to protect you from being hurt in the same way again. Functional? Perhaps. All the time. True? No. Never true. Because the truth, the actual truth, is something no story can contain. The truth is what you are before the story starts. And the truth sets you free. Not as a metaphor, not as an inspiration, as an actual, immediate, this moment liberation from the weight of everything you've been pretending to be confined by. I'm Anca. Welcome back to Lumina Liber, Season 1, The Power of Awareness, Chapter 5, The Truth that sets you free. This is the one. Let's go. If you've been with this series from the beginning, 5 weeks in, 5 transmissions deep, I want you to know something before we start. What you've been doing over these weeks is not passive. You've been actively loosening the grip of the construct itself, episode by episode. The I am, the dreamer, the assumption, the desire. Something has been releasing. You may have felt it. You may not have been able to name it. And today we name it. And today we complete that release. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this episode when we're done. And let's begin. I want to be very direct with you today, because what we're working with in Chapter 5 is not a technique. It is not a practice in the usual sense. It is not something you do. It is something you stop doing. And what you stop doing is this: pretending to be smaller than you are. Not arrogance, not grandiosity, the opposite. The smallness I'm talking about is the smallness of someone who has identified so completely with their story, their history, their wounds, their accumulated evidence about what's possible, that they've forgotten what they actually are underneath all of it. I call it the lie, the false identification, the case of mistaken identity, so convincing, so long running, so supported by everything around you that it feels like the truth. But it is not. And this episode is about the moment consciousness recognizes the lie for what it is. Not through effort, not through years of therapy and healing and working through everything. Through a single, clear, direct recognition of what is actually true. I am not my story. I'm the awareness that has been watching the story. And the awareness is free. Let me start with a lie. Not to dwell in it, but because you cannot recognize what you've been freed from without looking at it clearly first. The lie I am referring to is not a conscious deception. Nobody sat you down and told you lie, untruth about who you are. The lie is subtle. It's the natural result of being a conscious being having experiences and concluding from those experiences that you are what happened to you. You are perhaps rejected and you concluded something about your worth. You felt as something and you concluded something about your capability. You were treated a certain way and you concluded something about what you deserve. None of these conclusions are the truth. They are just interpretations. Patterns recognized by a nervous system trying to make sense of experience. Stories constructed by a mind trying to protect itself from future pain. Completely understandable, completely functional in their own way, and completely, entirely not true at the level of what you actually are. Because what you actually are, the I am we touched in episode 1, the consciousness we rested in episode 2, the awareness that has been watching every single experience of your life without ever once being defined by any of it, that has no wounds, that has no limitations, that has no story. It is simply, quietly, endlessly aware. And awareness is free by nature, by definition. Now, here is the distinction I want to make that is so simple it almost escapes notice. You are not trying to become free. You are recognizing that you are free. Right now, already, in this moment, beneath everything. The freedom is not something you create or earn or arrive after sufficient healing. It is a natural state of the consciousness you already are. The only question is, what are you identified with right now? The story, which has limits, wounds, and ceilings, or the awareness, which has none. Because your experience of life at any given moment is determined entirely by the answer to that question. What are you identified with right now? When you're identified with a story, you feel its weight, its constraints, its ceiling, its history. All of it feels real and solid and defining. When you're identified with awareness, the story is still there, the history is still there, but they're seen from freedom rather than as a cage. And from that seeing, everything becomes a different kind of possible. And this is where I need to say something about healing. Because I work in the healing space, and this distinction matters. I'm not saying your wounds aren't real. I'm not saying your history didn't happen. I'm not saying the story is not relevant. What I'm saying is, the story is not the truth of what you are. It is an experience. The difference between someone who has healed their wounds and someone who has recognized the truth of their awareness is this. Healing changes the content of the story. The story becomes less painful, more coherent, more workable. That matters. That is real and important work. But recognition of the awareness of the I am that was never actually wounded, that doesn't change the story. It changes the level from which the story is seen. And from that level, the story loses its authority. Not its reality, its authority over what you assume is possible. That is the freedom I'm pointing at. I want to ask you something. What is the story you've been most identified with? Not the story you tell others, the one you tell yourself, the one that runs underneath every ambition, every relationship, every moment of, I want this, but you know what it is. And I want to offer you something. The story, as real as it feels, it is not the truth of who you are. It is an experience being had by something that was never defined by it. Hold that. We are going to work with it directly. And drop in the comments, not the whole story, just one word that names the lie you've been living inside. Just one word. The comments on this video are going to be a transmission in themselves. I want to tell you about the moment I stopped believing the story. Not the gradual process of healing it. The moment I stopped believing it was true. For a long time, I carried a very particular story about myself. Capable, able to help others access deep states, deep freedom, deep transformation. And underneath that, a quiet, persistent, and surprisingly belief that I was somehow fundamentally complicated. That where other people had simple access to ease and belonging and love, I had to navigate something more like a labyrinth, more difficult, more minefield than open field. I had done enough work to function beautiful within that story, to achieve things within it, to be effective within it. What I hadn't done was the question whether it was true. The moment that changed was not a breakthrough session for me, not a big experience. It was quiet. It was a moment in meditation where I found myself watching the story with a kind of curiosity, like looking at something very careful from a slight distance. And I really noticed, not thought, but felt, that the story had a quality that the awareness watching it did not have. The story had weight. The awareness watching it had none. The story had edges. The awareness had none. The story had a story, a history, a wound, a shape built from evidence. The awareness watching it had simply always been here, clean, unbothered, entirely untouched by every single thing the story claimed had defined me. And something broke in me in that moment, not broke like damage, but broke like light through a crack. The story was not the truth. It had never been the truth. It was an experience, a very convincing, very long-running, very well-supported experience. But the truth, the awareness watching it all, was free, had always been free. And recognizing that was the truth that set me free. That is what today is for. Everything we've discussed today has been pointing at one thing, not a concept, a direct recognition. And that recognition cannot happen in the thinking mind. It can only happen in the awareness itself. I'm going to guide you there now. And what I need from you is very simple. Just arrive. More fully than you have in any other episodes. Let whatever you've been holding today, whatever the story offered up, Just be present. You don't need to fix it or release it or work through it. Just bring it with you. And let's see what's underneath it. So go ahead and find a comfortable position and let the eyes close. And just be here, not anywhere else, not in the story, not in the future, not in the past, here, now. Feel the body more completely than you have before. Every point of contact with what's beneath you. Every place the body touches the earth through whatever is holding it. And just know the earth got you. This practice got you. I got you. And let something that has been held at the surface begin to come down. Like the body finally exhaling something it forgot it was holding. And now I want to ask you something with a part of you that doesn't think. What have you been calling yourself? Not your name, the story you've been running, the conclusion you drew from everything that happened, the definition that feels like the truth. Let it be present. Good. And now, imagine a tide going out softly with the quiet patience of the ocean that knows it will always return to itself. And this tide, as it moves out, is carrying with it everything that was deposited, everything that was accumulated, everything that was placed on you, that was never actually yours. the conclusions drawn from pain, carrying them out, the identities given by others, carrying them out, the definitions written by fear, carrying them out, all of them. Let them go. Let them go with the simple recognition that they were never the truth of who you are. Let the tide carrying them, the story about what you deserve, out. The story about what's possible for someone like you, out. The ceiling that felt so real, out. The sound and the wound that felt so defining, out. All of them. And notice what remains when the tide has gone out. Not emptiness, clarity. The shore as it always was, beneath everything that was deposited on it. Clean, still, entirely itself. This is you beneath the story. And from this stripped, clear, still place, I want to invite you into something very simple and precious. I want you to see yourself. Not the story, not the constructed identity, not the you that other people have reflected back. The actual you. The awareness you are right now watching all of this. Can you feel it? The thing that has been here this entire transmission. Watching the tide go out. Watching the shore emerge. Watching the story without being the story. What is that? It doesn't have a wound, does it? It watched the wound. It was present from the wound. It held the wound with extraordinary faithfulness. But the wound happened to the story, not to this. Feel the quality of this awareness right now. Has it ever been less than whole? Has it ever been unworthy? Has it ever been confined by the story, or just present for the story while remaining completely itself? You are seeing yourself, perhaps for the first time, not through the lens of the story, but as the awareness that was always watching. And what you are at this level has never been anything less than completely free. And now the truth, not as a concept, as a felt reality right here in this body, in this moment. You are free. Free at the level of what you actually are. The story has weight. The awareness watching it has none. The story has a ceiling. The awareness watching it has none. The story has edges. The awareness watching it has none. You are not trying to become free. You are recognizing that you are free right now, already beneath everything. The freedom is not something you create. It is something you stop covering up. You are free. Awareness is free by nature, by definition, and you are awareness. Rest here in the truth of what and who you actually are. In the freedom that was never absent, only overlooked. In the awareness that watched every chapter of your story without ever once being written by it. You are free. And when you bring this back, bring back the seeing, the ability to notice when you might identify with a story, and return to the awareness watching it. One breath, one return, as many times as the story tries to reclaim you. And now I invite you to begin to feel the room again. The sounds, the breath, the body. And go ahead and take a breath of someone who knows what they are. And when you're ready, eyes open, slowly. Welcome back, welcome free. Not as a feeling that will fade, but as a recognition you now have access to. Always, because you've touched it. And what has been touched once can be touched again, more easily, more quickly, more completely each time. 2 practices for this week. The first, the return. The story might come back. Maybe in 10 minutes, maybe tomorrow morning, maybe the moment you check your phone. That's how it works. The practice is not staying in the awareness permanently. The practice is noticing when you're slipping into the story and returning. One breath, one return. That's it. The number of returns is not a measure of how far you've fallen. It's a measure of how committed you are to the truth. The second practice for the week is the distinction. This week, begin noticing the difference between the story and the awareness watching the story. Not in meditation, in the middle of your day, in the middle of a difficult conversation, in the middle of a moment where the story is trying to tell you who you are. Just notice. there's the story. And here is the awareness watching it. 2 words. I see. That's the whole practice. I asked you before the transmission to find 1 word that names the lie you've been living inside. Now, I want to ask you to drop 1 word that names the truth. Not a description of the awareness that's too vast for words. 1 word for what you felt in the transmission. In the scene phase especially, when the awareness was looking at itself. What was there? Drop it below, just 1 word. Because the comment section of this video is about to become something I've never seen in a YouTube comment section before. A collection of single words naming the truth of what human beings actually are, of what we are. And that's a transmission in itself. Share this episode, please. Not for the algorithm, but because the truth that sets you free is something every single person you know is searching for. And most of them are looking for it in the wrong place. Set them here. And 2 things before you go. 1, the Lumina Awakening, free audio, ancauni.com, link in the description. The state we just touched, the stripped scene free awareness, is what this audio is designed to return to you daily. Go get a link. 2. If the episodes have shown you the depth and uniqueness of what becomes available when this work is done in a fully private container, tailored precisely for your specific story, your specific consciousness, your specific desires. That's what my private work is. Not more of what we do here. Deeper. In a way that a YouTube video, however powerful, simply cannot replicate. ancauni.com. Apply to work together. Next week, Chapter 6. Attention. Attention is not about focus or productivity. It is about the most creative act a conscious being can perform. Read it before you come back, and I will see you there. Take care and be well.